Okay, here we are, Mr. Cake. Just thought I'd put together a video of kind of the things that we've touched on over the last few months and where we're at, and just kind of my thoughts and stuff with him. So I obviously just brought him in the arena here and started. Flies are bad, so they kind of tend to drive him a little bit nutty. We'll see what he's like. On that note, when the flies do get really bad during the day and he kind of gets himself a little stressed and starts to pace around in the pen and get kind of agitated, especially the bot flies, really drive him a little bit crazy. I'll bring him in the barn in the afternoon, 2-3 hours sometimes or whatever, and he's really quite good in the stall by himself. Seems quite content and just to hang out in there and have a snack. Come here. Have a snack and have a little bit of a rest. So that's kind of nice that you can do that with him without him getting too worried. I did do his feet just a few days ago, maybe a week ago, somewhere around there. And they're looking a lot better. So yeah, the first time that I went to do his feet, I did him in here just because he was not being such a gentleman about having his feet done. That was a bit of a process, but we got through it. Now, the last time I've done him just in the barn, in the cross ties. And I typically tack him up in the barn, in the cross ties too. It's just easier. I got the camera set up here, so I didn't have to go and do a whole bunch of set the camera up and take it down and stuff. So, but he's generally quite good in the cross ties now. No issues there. So I do sometimes a little bit of hands-on stuff with him, a little bit of body work type belly lifts, and just kind of bring his focus and his awareness a little bit to himself. A little bit of thoracic sling lifts and just things like that. I've done some of the Masterson method with him. Again, just to kind of really bring his awareness and his focus to his own body. In the beginning, he was actually quite resistant with a lot of that. It's like he, was kind of getting in touch with himself for the first time in a while maybe, and wasn't super comfortable. And that is kind of a normal thing for a lot of horses too. Takes them a while to kind of settle in and be okay with that looking inward kind of thing. But I don't do this every day, and I haven't really done a ton of it, but I find it's a helpful thing to do. Again, just to kind of bring their awareness to areas, and it gives us a chance to really feel if there's some tension spots or ticklish areas where we should maybe spend a bit of time before we move too much further. He feels pretty good there. Sometimes, touching him down by the flank here and in the areas where there can be a little bit of touchiness, it's good just to kind of get a read on that and see how they're feeling. Good boy. I'd also, mention while I'm tacking up here that just really being aware of the little things with him. He was quite pushy and quite confrontational, and I guess I forgot my girth. I will be right back. So we'll try this again. So like I was saying, to really be aware of the small things with him. Just take, for instance, when I come in the stall in the morning to turn him out, because it's morning and he knows the routine, he knows he's going to be going outside. He'll be waiting right at the stall door, kind of a little bit, maybe leaning on the stall door, I don't mean he's pushing through it and running out the door, but he's right on the door and kind of waiting. So always have him take a couple steps back and just kind of wait for me to come in and get him. Putting the halter on, I like to have him bring his head around to us, maybe lower his nose into the halter. Being mindful that, like right there, he tried to nip my elbow. He will do that a lot. If he gets a little frustrated about something, or even if he's just sniffing around. So you just kind of have to be really mindful that he doesn't wind up with your arm in his mouth. Sometimes it's a little bit like he's kind of just feeling things out and, you know, nibbling a bit with the lips and kind of just checking. I would just discourage any of that nibbling and nipping at you right now. And he'll take almost any opportunity that he can to do that. So again, just be really mindful of that. So when you go to, let's say, put feed in a stall or put feed in his turnout pen or any of those situations, also not letting him kind of crowd into you and essentially, you know, steal food from you or push you away from the food. In his mind, if you're putting hay down in a pile or something and he approaches you as you're finishing putting the hay out, and then he walks towards the hay while you're leaving, you know, he can start to interpret that as he's basically pushing you away from feed, like he might do with another horse. You know, so he's constantly checking and testing, engaging and feeling what the rules are today, if they're still the same as yesterday. And so it's just really important to be on those little things so that he always understands that the consistency is always there. Sometimes he can be a little bit of a chore to bridle. He's been getting better and better. I've just bridled him right now over top the halter for a couple of reasons. It makes it easier to kind of just help him bring his head around here and kind of be in a little better position to bridle. It gives me another opportunity to take the halter off and kind of ask him to open the mouth so I can get the halter in there. It must be hooked on a tooth, there we go. And bring the halter underneath and out that way. I don't usually make too big of a deal out of these little bridling things in the beginning because 90% of the time they just go away on their own. And he's consistently better and better all the time. So just picking those moments when you have to be a little more insistent and letting the other things slide a little bit so he doesn't feel like you're constantly nagging him and micromanaging and nitpicking him all the time. We'll go through some of the groundwork stuff that we've done and just put the halter back on. Let's leave that like that for now. All right. Good boy. So in the beginning, when you're kind of leading him around, must be nap time. Just having him put a little bit of energy into what he's doing. That's it. Just asking for a little bit more than what he offers up in the beginning. Sometimes he's a little bit not sure if he really wants to go to work or rather just have a little nap in the sun. So here, just right now, kind of moving around, but I like to have more of this type of exercise here where we're going together as opposed to me just lunging him in a traditional kind of lunging where sometimes it's a little bit like we're standing there and kind of chasing them around. I would like, even in the beginning, to just have the feeling that we start to go together, work together, move together, stop together, turn together. He can start to read the energy in our body language and what we're doing, read the intention behind that, whether we want him to stay energized but maybe slow down a little bit or get a little bit bigger. We can work a little bit towards moving the shoulders. Boy. And just go with him again. Good. So if I want a little bit more energy, a little bit more forward, or a little bit more engagement from the hind end, I'm going to kiss to him. That's just to kind of energize the back end. If I want to move the shoulders, I'm going to point towards the shoulder and cluck to him. So have the verbal cues that I start to use right in the beginning. That's a verbal half halt there. And the shushing noise, you'll notice to back them up. And I'd just like to have those verbal cues in place. So when they don't fully understand the physical part, we can back it up with the verbal cue, and then we can start to merge the two together until we don't really need the verbal part so much anymore. Now when I change direction there from left to right and moved his shoulder over, in the beginning, to move the shoulders, especially, well, it didn't really matter from where, but from a distance. You had to do it from a distance in the beginning because his initial reaction to that was to push, was to just fight it. So everything in the beginning, what he did, wasn't really met with a curiosity or a, well, that's something new, well, let's give that a try. It was just immediately met with a, nope, I don't do that, and you can't make me do that. So I kept insisting that he walk here, for example, follow the rope, and move the shoulders. He would get stuck and kind of push into me and start to really resist, to where he started to rear up and strike a little bit, turn and kick. If you're in close, he would try to bite. He reared up one time so high that he fell over. And this was just from simply asking him to move his shoulders. So we worked a lot on that. The body control, the ability to move his body, to work through the body. And that's where a lot of the hands-on stuff came into play as well, is just having him understand where in time and space his body actually was. And then having a little bit more understanding of where he was in regards to us and what was, maybe okay, and what was he should be a little bit more mindful of. So in terms of being, spooky or reactive, really wasn't so much. But when the energy came up a little bit in his bubble or in his space, or changed in any way, he really didn't know how to handle that. So for example, if we were here and I start to create a bunch of energy, my intention isn't for him to run off, but there's a lot more energy in the area. In the beginning, that was met with the same thing, bucking, kicking, snorting, trying to pull away. He kind of had down to a science a little bit. Say if he was going in this direction, what he would initially do is drop his head down low, so he got a little bit of a pull on you there, straighten his neck completely, and then turn so that his shoulder was against the rope here, and then turn his whole body, kind of using the shoulder as a pivot point, and then he'd be facing that way with his hind legs coming towards you. So he had his full body straight and braced on both sides. So he's very strong, then he could pull away or run off. if he couldn't pull away from you as he went by you, because he's turning now to the outside and his hind legs are a lot closer to you, then the hind legs would come in your direction. He was very tricky, very cagey, and very, very fast. So it was kind of a very good time to bring him for some education, because he was getting to the point where, you know, he may not have been far from hurting someone. And that might have been exaggerated a little bit because he's in a new place, new people, new sights, sounds, smells, routines, you know, and he just kind of had to sort out how he was going to protect himself or stay okay when he doesn't know any of the environment he's in. He may not have been as bad that way at home with the people he knows and the routines that he understands and all of that. And they rarely are. It's oftentimes when they go away for training or go away for a bit of a summer camp type of thing that you start to see those behaviors show up. When you really start to ask them some more difficult questions and put them in a spot where they don't have all that familiarity around them. So it was a really good experience for him to be away from home. Good boy. And going back a little bit to when the energy changes around him, how he had difficulty with that. For example, when the cows showed up here, all the cows coming out of the trees, all the energy that they were bringing, the sights, the sounds, the smells, when he really just kind of lost control and was really just running in terror. There was no reasoning with him in his turnout pen. Then I actually ended up having to put a rope on him, like rope him, so that I could kind of slowly start to bring him in to me from 20 feet away. So in that case, what we would do is come in here, work on all the groundwork patterns and all the things that we had been working on up to that point, helping him find some relaxation and softness in the body and connecting that mentally to where he started to get those feel-good hormones and chemicals flowing and starting to understand how he could react in situations to make himself feel better and to be a little bit more in control of himself and have the confidence to know that he could manage a little bit. We would come in here, and when the cows came up, they would usually come up in the morning, might be between 8:30 and 9 o'clock, somewhere in that area when they would wander through onto wherever they were headed next. And they would bed down for a few hours out here, and that happened to be basically surrounding his turnout pen. So I would come in here when the cows showed up, we would work, and then I would go out in the yard. So we were probably 50, 60 feet away from his pen, but the cows were now there, and we would do the same thing there. And then in a few days, we could go into his pen, surrounded by the cows, work on those same patterns and those same ideas, till where I could then have him turned out in the pen without me in there. But I had to be on the outside of the fence so that when he really started to get bothered, I could redirect his attention or get his focus here on me or on a flag or something. And then he started to learn how to put those pieces together. And then eventually I could have him turned out. Have him turned out just on his own with the cows around. So it was quite a process just to help him with that. And, you know, probably 10 days or so, to be honest. Took quite a while. But I think also a pretty big growing and maturing experience for him as well. So then horses that have a little bit of difficulty with the energy changing around them and how to manage it, when you bring the energy up and you're kind of a little bit more in this position here, a little bit more of a driving or a riding position, and you're kind of in the middle of them, that can be a difficult concept for them to get a hold of too. So, for example, if we go trotting with him, in the beginning that was met with quite a bit of uncertainty, bucking, kicking, not really bucking and kicking at me, but just because the energy comes up. Good boy. And then we'll take it a little higher. Yeah. Usually when you go into canter, you'll really notice a reaction. Good boy. And then oftentimes, quite a bit more on this side. So I also have a little bit of a verbal cue for the canter transition. That's the whistle. So I bring my energy up, maybe point in this direction, kiss to him, and then whistle. Mainly for the reason that, again, horses that tend to be a little bit pushing back into any sort of pressure, if I try in the beginning to, let's say, get him to canter by using my legs and getting a bit stronger, and then he starts to brace against that, he now creates a blockage in his body from that bracing. I got to get a little stronger to try to overcome that. I now start to brace in my body. So the idea of kind of going together and kind of him following our body is a little bit harder to have happen. Because we're getting too strong and creating some blockages. Good boy. And another reason why I kind of like to have that lunging type exercise where we're going more together than me kind of chasing him around on the end of the lunge line is that I can do that and bring that energy into those areas and see how his reactions are. Good boy. Yeah. Good. And so I've used a lot of things like flags and the tarp and the big ball and stuff like that around him. And I don't use these things to sack him out in a traditional sense, to keep going until they stop moving and have him basically freeze. It's just to help him understand how to manage himself if he gets bothered by them. Now the thing with him, he wasn't, it's not that he reacted to these things in a way that you might think of that he's a little bit scared of it. His reaction was more to confront it. So if you touch him down here, he might strike at it. Down low where he can't see, there's a new sensation, a new noise. So his thing would be to fight instead of reacting. Like his reaction was more of a fighting mindset than afraid and, oh, I got to get away. Now, that doesn't mean that he went straight to fighting all the time. When the cows showed up, his reaction was to get away. He just happened to be in a smallish pen where he couldn't do that. So when you kind of move, like in the beginning, say for example right here, when it's down by his front legs and making that noise, that was, more of a reaction to really strike against it, rear up and kind of, let's get out of here kind of thing. And so I've done that with various different things, and it's not something that I do every day because I don't want it to just come where he's just like, oh yeah, this is what we do, this routine, I got it all figured out. I just like to mix these things in once in a while so that they're a little bit newish, and not just part of the program. And again, just to see how he manages it that particular day. But my reins are. Here. Okay. And for the first little while, I rode him off the halter, and then rode him with the halter kind of running through the ring of the bit. And now we're just working more so off of the bit. And not really, the riding is, I mean, it's in his very, very infant stages. He's big, but he's got a lot of developing to do, and I didn't really want to push the riding for the sake of riding at this stage that he's at physically. So I ride him, I'll get on him a couple, 3 times a week type of thing, but I've kind of kept the focus more on just sort of learning where the boundaries are, kind of managing himself when he gets a little frustrated and not just kind of trying to bite everything around him. And yep, good. More kind of the mental aspect. You know, he's definitely changing physically as well, but just think at this age, too much riding isn't really that beneficial, but it's certainly a good time for him to kind of have the understanding of this is what it means to have a rider up there. So I'm going to go to work a little bit on just creating some bend in the body, working the inside hind over, picking up on the rein, stepping that inside shoulder over. Good boy. And the hind leg. And I ride him with a whip just because it's much easier to kind of direct and pinpoint exactly where you're speaking to at this stage. The shoulder. Good. As opposed to just trying to use the leg too much, or you know, where it's a bigger surface area and it's a long ways at the moment for him. It's a long ways from, let's say, the leg aid to his brain and then back to his body. Good. So I can use the whip just to make that a little bit more accurate and help him kind of understand a little bit sooner and easier what it is that what body part we're speaking to. Good. The rein back is really good, you know, provided that it's done in a way that's beneficial. So helping him raise up a little bit, elevate the front end, rock the weight back a little onto the hind legs, and then step backwards. It's really good in, you know, just helping change the carrying posture a little bit, developing different muscles. But also, he really also has to put some thought into how he's moving his feet. It's not just a standard pattern of when you're walking forward. He kind of has to learn, walking forward, it's more like a heel-toe landing. Walking backwards, it's a little bit more toe or heel-toe landing. No, sorry, toe-heel. So he kind of has to put some thought into that. Okay. Sometimes we gotta remind a little bit that we can move forward here. That's it. Try to give him a little length in the neck. Good. And just get a little energy in the body. That's it. Yeah. Sometimes it's easy just to get a little bit sluggish. Good. And I don't want to scare him to the leg, but have him start to understand that when we ask for forward, that it's trying to have the idea and give him the understanding of what that means. Good boy. Start to build in that understanding and instill that little bit of work ethic so that little by little we're not doing all the work. And that just obviously is just part of the process. And just helping him here and just trying to guide him with the reins. I'm trying as much as I can not to control him or contain him, but that I can just give the rein forward, feel that he follows that a little bit from carrying over from the groundwork of following the lead line, following the rein, following my body. If I bring a little swing into my seat, that he starts to react accordingly to that, respond to that by stepping through with a little bit more energy. If I can keep my lower back and my seat nice and loose and swinging, encourage him to do the same. So he steps through from behind. And bring the front end up a little bit. So bring the hands up and forward. Both legs towards the shoulders. Yeah, good. And just feel a little shift in his posture. I'm just going to get off and fix this strap on the nose band here so it's not flipping around and bothering him like another fly. He's already got enough of them crawling on him. See if we can tuck that in a little bit. Good boy, good. That'll give us a little bit more mounting practice as well. Good boy. And forward. Come. Yep, good. Good boy. And he's quite, I mean, obviously he's young, but he is quite immature. Very immature. It'll take him a while to kind of grow up a little more. But he's smart, which can work for you or against you. So I'm just trying here to bring him up a little bit in the front and open in the throat latch so he feels that he's not restricted. Bring the shoulders up. Good boy. And just have the feeling that he follows the reins up and out a little bit. We'll work on the stretch too, of course, but not getting too focused on that to where we lose the ability for him to move through the front end. That's nice. And then we get to where it feels like he starts to move a little bit more on his own, and we don't have to do as much. Boy, and little short spurts. A little break in there, rub some flies off. Also helps him just make friends with the whip. So he knows he doesn't have to be worried about it or afraid of it. And we'll see if we can connect to that inside hind, the right hind. Good boy. So when I'm working up here and trying to move the inside hind, whichever one it is, I like to start by just bringing my elbow up high and bringing my hand up a little bit, opening out to the side, so it kind of leads him into that turn and doesn't pull back into the turn. Kind of encourages the neck to stay long and the body to open up and go long into the turn. So up here, look under my armpit towards the inside hind, step the inside hind around, touch with the whip if I need to complete the turn, and then walk up. And then cluck and tap on the right shoulder because he just kind of got stuck with the right shoulder in the floor. Right shoulder, good. Good. That's it. And sometimes he'll start to roll up a little bit in the front. Yep. We're going to work on bringing the front end up and out a little bit. Just to, again, to start to plant the idea for him that he can go out to the hand, trying to help him understand to go forward. Yeah, good. Forward and straight. And a deep breath, and just kind of sit with this for a little bit and feel it and kind of soak in that knowledge. Boy. And we'll see if we can bring the outside shoulder around. So just lay the whip on there. Back up if he starts to go through. Good. And not looking for perfect by any means, just a little bit of progress, and not drilling it to, where it's just not so good at the moment, not kind of getting fixated on making it good or getting it better, or really dwelling on the fact that it wasn't perfect or what we had in mind. But just putting the idea there, trying it, asking him a little bit more difficult question, and then going away from it. Good boy. Up, up. Yeah. Good. Little bits of work again, get the energy up, get the blood pumping, and then back to a rest, and just see how he feels, if he's kind of getting a little bit energized, or if he's kind of capable of putting that little bit of work in, and then having a little breather, and just kind of chilling. And just kind of starting to really grasp the concept of what it is we're doing. And really trying to build in him feeling good about what he's doing at this age. and at this stage of his work. Not trying to get him to do things, or, you know, with the ultimate goal of he's bred to jump, so he's going to be a jumper, or any of that. We're just really working on his ability to comprehend what we're doing, to pay attention to what we're doing in short doses, again, because he's got, you know, quite a short attention span, and that he starts to connect the feeling to what he's doing with a feeling that he would like to find again and again and again, and then he starts to search for that a little bit more. Come. Yep. Poop time, maybe. It's another thing that he does right now, being the young stallion. He likes to poop a bunch of times, and then if he can, he'll stop and poop on or near the pile that he just left. Good boy. Good. Never know when any rival stallions may be coming through his territory, so he wants to mark his turf. Come. Come. Yep, good. That's good. Good boy. And in the canter transitions, really not being worried that the canter transition doesn't happen at a certain spot or in a certain way. More that he just starts to realize those aids are there, what they mean, how to organize his body to allow him to go into the correct canter. And that when he gets in the canter, that he just rolls with it, feels comfortable and relaxed and soft, not stressed. And we do a little bit of nice canter. Maybe we can ask him to maintain it if he feels like he's about to break. Maybe we can ride it a little bit forward and do that in a fairly short span, and then a break. So that each time you ask him, he's like, yeah, I'll put in a good effort because I know there's a little bit of a break coming at the other side. Good boy. So anyway, I think I'm going to leave it there. Flies are really kind of starting to bother him, and that was really quite nice work for him. So I have a video of when I did his feet. I'll put that on with this video. You can kind of see how he is. Some trailer loading stuff that I've done, just little few different things like that. So anyway, yeah, this is him at the moment, and we'll talk to you soon. Yeah, good work. All right. Okay.